a man stood face to face with the fearsome level 67 wingless dragon, Sebarumus. As the dragon began charging up its powerful attack, an old warrior nearby doubted his ability to block it this time. But just then, something unexpected happened. A goblin stepped right in front of Sebarumus, holding a club in its hand. Without hesitation, the dragon unleashed its deadly strike. Yet the goblin countered, attacking Sebarumus with the club in hand. Shocked, the man watching exclaimed in disbelief. The goblin hadn't just cut the dragon, it had crushed it. Sebarumus was killed with a single strike. The man wondered if this goblin was actually a summoned creature. The old warrior pointed toward a hilltop. Everyone turned their eyes to the hill, spotting someone standing there. The group began murmuring, convinced that the figure had summoned the goblin. But before this happened, let's go back where it all began. The scene then shifted to our MC Kim, working hard at a construction site, lost in thought. He reflected on his identity, a goblin, a creature considered weak, meant only for low-level dungeons. No matter how much experience a goblin gained, it remained a goblin. While humans could win the lottery and become rich overnight, goblins stayed stuck in place. Nearby, two workers were having a conversation. One mentioned Mr. Cha, who had been skipping work. The other added that Mr. Cha was deeply into a game called Heaven's Door and had supposedly gained a hidden class. Hearing this, the first man remarked that getting a hidden class was like striking gold. He was about to earn a fortune. Their words echoed in Kim's mind. Heaven's Door, the trending full-dive VR game, felt more real than reality. Though expensive, internet cafes across the country had adapted to this tech, allowing even broke people like him to enjoy it. The demand for the game led to in-game items gaining real-world value. Heaven's Door had become a true game changer. Though he once enjoyed it, now it only brought frustration. Back in the game world, Kim was mining with dedication. After much grinding, he managed to collect 3 ores. Frustrated, he cursed his fate. Despite all his efforts, he felt buried in debt. There was no sign of becoming a legendary hero, dating a beautiful party member, or finding a happy ending. Heaven's Door had become just another grind. But luck suddenly shifted. He discovered an advanced healing crystal, worth at least 300,000 won if exchanged. Joy overwhelmed him. Laughing like a madman, he reminded himself why he kept mining. Just then, a beautiful woman appeared, catching his attention. She noted that he had been mining daily, assuming his mining skill was high. When asked, he admitted it was decent. She explained that her party was blocked inside a dungeon by a massive rock. Despite having strong teammates, none had mining skills. They needed a skilled miner's help. Kim hesitated, saying his level was too low to safely enter the dungeon. A dwarf nearby assured him they'd handle the monsters. He just needed to mine. Then, with a bitter tone, the dwarf expressed frustration at being stereotyped for mining, reminding everyone that dwarves weren't just tools. Kim considered the offer. Joining their party could help him gain EXP and access rare ores. Still, he doubted his safety. After all, while death wasn't permanent in the game, there was always a risk. Suddenly, the woman grabbed his hand. She apologized, admitting she had a thing for strong-armed miners. She told him it was okay if he refused. Without hesitation, he accepted. Inside the dungeon, fear crept in as Kim faced a level 9 Grey Wolf. Though the monsters were low level, they still outclassed him. The wolf lunged at him, but the woman, Catherine Lee, a level 39 magician, instantly eliminated the threat with her salamander flame skill. She checked if he was okay while he was in awe of her power. She had wiped out the entire wolf pack in one move. Catherine asked him to stay close. It was dangerous to be alone. Blushing, Kim imagined a romantic future beside her. His thoughts raced toward the pink romance route he had always dreamed of. Another teammate joined the fight, easily defeating the wolves with a move called Giant Wheel Swing. He spoke about a suspicious ore that could only be broken with a high mining level. They had skipped it in the past, not wanting to waste points on mining. Now they needed help from someone like Kim. Hearing this, Kim felt insulted. Did they see him as just a tool? He confronted the man, stating he wasn't useless in combat. The dwarf then questioned if the purchased information was accurate. A failed lead would cost them big. The man confirmed the info was solid and warned the dwarf that failure would be costly. As Kim mined, anger simmered inside him. He was used to being looked down on and risking his life for small rewards, but the routine had numbed his feelings. That numbness frustrated him even more. Still, he stayed calm. His job was to mine, get paid, and leave. Just another boring day. But the situation changed. As he mined, a hidden dungeon was revealed. Excitement filled him. Hidden dungeons came with rare rewards, and possibly even a hidden class. It felt like they had struck gold. Catherine chuckled and sarcastically said, "We?" Before he could react, the man from earlier attacked him from behind. Kim collapsed, struggling to breathe. Catherine mocked him. She called it absurd that a hidden dungeon could exist in a low-level area and be accessed with mere mining skills. She claimed they had done all the fighting and he had simply followed along. Realization hit him. They had planned this from the start. The man grabbed his hair and mocked him for being clueless. They knew about the hidden dungeon. They just needed him to unlock it. As a reward, they decided to kill him quickly. The man struck him down, but Kim suddenly opened his eyes. He was still inside the dungeon. They hadn't finished him. Then he noticed something. The advanced healing crystal had shattered. It had saved his life, reviving him fully. His precious 300,001 crystal was gone. Furious, he cursed them. His eyes turned to the still-open dungeon door. That meant it hadn't been cleared yet. Despite the loss, he wasn't ready to back down. He decided to crash their party and turn his life around. Those who looked down on him would regret it. He jumped into the dungeon, landing hard. The stairs confirmed he had entered the hidden area. As he looked ahead, he spotted something massive, a goblin shrine. A smug-looking goblin sat on a throne. He was confused. A hidden dungeon filled with goblins? It felt too easy. Something was off. The silence was eerie, and he couldn't find the others. Suddenly, his foot bumped into a body. Looking down, he was stunned. The dwarf from earlier lay unconscious on the ground. The system asked Kim if he could use a revive skill. He replied there was no such skill. It seemed like he was deliberately avoiding pressing the revive button just to not miss the hidden dungeon. His greed was evident. Then the system gave him a warning, stating that this was a high-difficulty dungeon, far beyond his current level, and urged him to exit immediately. Surprised by the message, he turned around after hearing someone scream. The man who had previously killed him was now caught by a monster, Catherine Lee, crushed beneath that creature's foot. This terrifying monster was called Geiger, and had a level of 80. Seeing it left Kim in shock. A level 80 monster was no joke. The monster then devoured the man it was holding, leaving Kim stunned. He realized that the worst-case scenario was unfolding. Many games had aimed for realism before, but Heaven's Door went a step further by including the sense of touch, along with the pain that came with it. Safety systems were in place, but only for damage caused by low-level or equal-level monsters. Catherine Lee started calling out for help. Kim, feeling helpless, knew there was nothing he could do against such a monster. Pain and trauma didn't disappear just because a character revived. They directly affected the brain. In severe cases, they could even lead to brain death or real death. Running away, he thought about how he couldn't allow that thing to be the one to kill him. This situation wasn't his fault. His teammates had abandoned him first. He was weak, so of course, he couldn't help anyone. Survival was his only choice, even if he had to do it alone. Suddenly, the system notified him that the Goblin Lord felt a sense of kinship with his cowardice and weakness. Shocked, he questioned the label of being weak and cowardly. He didn't want to be like this. He hadn't chosen powerlessness. If he had even a little strength, he wouldn't have run away. At the same time, the monster crushed Catherine Lee in under its foot. Kim was filled with frustration. He had only wanted a decent job where he wasn't looked down on. He had wanted to fight monsters, not mine rocks, and use cool skills like everyone else. Because of the debt his unknown parents left behind, he had grown up unable to do anything he truly wanted. And now he was being called weak. He hadn't done anything wrong. Yet even a goblin from its throne dared to look down on him. He raged inside, wondering who gave a goblin the right to judge him. In the real world, he was looked down on. In the game, he was treated the same way. And now, even a goblin pitied him. If being a goblin meant that, then so be it. The system then informed him that he was now an honorary goblin. Goblins would now assist him anytime. He had met the conditions to change to a hidden class, Goblin Summoner. Hearing this, Kim was stunned. He couldn't believe this was a hidden class and rejected the offer, but the system overruled his choice and proceeded with the class change. He shouted in protest, but it was too late. The transformation had already happened. Suddenly, the monster appeared right behind him. As he turned around in fear, he realized there was no more running. There was no going back now. He summoned a goblin. As the goblin began to appear, he hoped it wouldn't make a flashy dragon-style entrance. A weak-looking goblin stood before him. He didn't care. He planned to use the creature as bait and escape while it distracted the monster. He ordered the goblin to move forward. To his surprise, the goblin looked ready to fight. Kim braced himself to run. But in a single instant, the goblin sliced the monster into two pieces using just a chunk of meat it held in its hand. The monster was defeated in one blow. Kim gained a significant boost in experience points, along with two new skills, Feed Goblin and Walk Goblin. Even the summoned goblin gained a large amount of experience. Staring in disbelief at what had just happened, Kim stood silent, trying to process it. That seemingly weak goblin was actually at max level. In the gaming world, after Catherine dies, the scene shifts to the real world. Inside the gaming capsule, Catherine screams violently. A man rushes to her and quickly removes the device from her eyes, realizing this shock might be something she can't return from, even after retiring. Meanwhile, Kim's goblin is seen fiercely defeating multiple monsters. As each monster falls, Kim's level continues to rise. After clearing many enemies, Kim starts collecting mana stones and, exhausted, tells his goblin he can't carry anymore. At this point, Kim has reached level 31 and has gathered several items in his backpack. Kim reflects on his progress, realizing he cleared the hidden dungeon the moment he caught the Geiger. But since the party members who defended him are dead, the only way to return would be dying. He's surprised that his goblin, who cleared the mine dungeon alone, didn't level up even once while he reached level 31. The system offers no information about the goblin, making Kim suspicious. It doesn't make sense that such a low-ranking mob is this strong. But Kim brushes it off, deciding to take full advantage of this bug before the developers patch it. With this goblin, he no longer needs to mine and believes he can become the best in Heaven's Door. Later, Kim visits a bank where a lady informs him that everything, including the wolf pelts, totals around 97,000 won. She asks if he wants the amount transferred directly into his account. Kim realizes he can convert in-game items into real cash through the bank and is stunned at how influential the game is. He then asks if he can send the money to a different account and mentions having more valuable items to sell, including a Geiger's membrane and its heart. As the lady checks the value, she is visibly shocked and calls for her boss. The bank manager arrives, serving cold tea to Kim and admitting he forgot to boil the water. Kim asks why the manager is personally handling this, saying he's only there to cash out items. The manager explains that he has better investment options for Kim's money and doesn't want it wasted in a simple checking account. Kim questions this investment talk, but the manager reveals the true value of the Geiger's heart and membrane, 230 million won. Shocked by the number, Kim later thanks his goblin for helping him pay off 10% of his debt. Without even being summoned, the goblin came running, and Kim affectionately praises him, calling him cute. At least while in town, Kim considers unsummoning him. As Kim walks through town with the goblin by his side, he notices people staring. He tries to unsummon the goblin but realizes the goblin won't go away unless he dies. A passerby comments on the unusual sight of a goblin in town. A girl adds that someone must have summoned it and calls it unsightly. Kim is frustrated. Everyone seems to think he's the goblin. Suddenly, the goblin bumps into a man, who angrily questions why a goblin is walking the streets. Onlookers recognize the man as Patton, the self-proclaimed annihilator of the Evaton Guild. Kim finds the title impressive but learns Patton gave it to himself. This worries Kim. Anyone calling themselves an annihilator can't be normal. Kim tries to explain that the goblin isn't a monster, but Patton attacks. The goblin easily counters his strike using a piece of meat, knocking Patton away. People around gasp. Patton is dead, killed by a goblin. Kim panics, realizing if anyone discovers the goblin is his summon, it could become a huge problem. One of the bystanders mocks Patton, saying it's embarrassing to be toyed with by a goblin. The new characters introduced are Yoonhyuk, a level 30 assassin, Suji, a level 28 assassin, and Jihyun, a level 27 archer. Kim assesses the situation. He's confident his goblin won't lose, but worries that the goblin killing all of them would create trouble. Trying to de-escalate, Kim tells them he'll handle the goblin. Yoonhyuk, however, warns Kim not to interfere, or they'll kill him too. Kim deflects by saying it would look bad for all of them to gang up on a single goblin. The goblin then uses his throwstone skill, hitting one of the opponents. Enraged, they start chasing Kim and the goblin. While running, Kim laments how things spiraled so quickly. He had a max-level goblin and a bright future ahead, thinking life in Heaven's Door would be smooth. Suddenly, an old man calls out to Kim from inside a house, urging him to come in. Without time to question, Kim runs inside. But just as he exits another door, he shouts in frustration. The old man had misled him. The old man follows him, ominously saying it was the way to Kim's funeral. As Kim escapes, he checks his system window. The system notifies him that the Goblin Lord is impressed by Kim's sneakiness, granting him 1 goblin point. Kim complains, wondering why he's being called weak, vulgar, and sneaky. He insists he did nothing wrong. It was the others who betrayed and attacked him. Resolved, Kim tells the goblin they're done being looked down on. From now on, they'll destroy the Enten Guild. With maniacal smiles, both Kim and the goblin share a moment of wicked determination. Meanwhile, Yoonhyuk and his companions search for Kim and the goblin. Jihyun questions if Yoonhyuk really needs to be there, saying she could handle it alone. Yoonhyuk warns her not to underestimate the goblin. Though Patton was the weakest, he was still taken down in a single hit. Suddenly, they hear someone screaming. Yoonhyuk turns around to find one of his allies already killed. The goblin appears behind him. Yoonhyuk swings his sword, but it doesn't affect the goblin. He realizes what he saw earlier wasn't a trick, he could actually die. The goblin attacks using the meat piece again. Yoonhyuk blocks it with his sword but is shocked that something managed to parry his weapon. From a distance, Jihyun supports Yoonhyuk with arrows, urging him to fight seriously. Yoonhyuk wonders how a low-ranking monster could inflict such immense damage. Convinced someone must be manipulating things, he activates his extreme evil form. Jihyun is alarmed, questioning why he's using such a powerful skill against just 1 goblin. Yoonhyuk calmly responds that the skill might as well be passive now. Holding his dagger in reverse grip, he prepares for combat. Jihyun agrees to end the fight quickly before anyone sees them, activating her Gale Arrow skill. The system reports that Gale Arrows has removed all movement speed debuffs within its area. Yoonhyuk charges at the goblin, but again, the attack has no effect. Confused and afraid, Yoonhyuk starts to panic. The goblin smirks and knocks Yoonhyuk away, sending him flying past Jihyun. Suddenly, Kim appears before Jihyun and mocks her earlier confidence. Seeing him and the goblin together, Jihyun is stunned. She realizes this goblin is far from ordinary. Kim confirms it with a grin. He's the one who summoned him. Jihyun stood in shock, questioning how a mere goblin could possess such immense power. After all, Yoonhyuk of the Darkness was one of the strongest members of the Evaton Guild. Meanwhile, Kim laughed like a madman, dismissing her concern by saying it was none of her business. What mattered now was that he was extremely angry. Jihyun demanded to know what he wanted and what wrong they had done to deserve this. Kim, enraged, accused them of being irresponsible, claiming it was all their fault. As Jihyun tried to clarify, she insisted that they were the ones who attacked first, and now both she and her precious thing were at their limit. Mocking her words, Kim sarcastically questioned if her precious thing was hard, joking that someone might get the wrong idea. He then ordered the goblin to silence her. Just then, voices from below rose in surprise. A few people had arrived and recognized them, realizing they were the same group from earlier. Kim noticed the gathering crowd and grew anxious, thinking that people had already shown up. Turning to the goblin, he decided it was time to wrap things up and escape. The goblin immediately covered Jihyun's mouth. From below, the onlookers jumped to conclusions, believing the goblin had annihilated the Evaton Guild and was now about to violate the last surviving woman. Panic set in as they feared they could be next. Kim realized the situation had spiraled out of control. He had only wanted revenge on the Evaton Guild, but now he was caught in a mess. Realizing there was no escape, he shouted for the goblin to stop and release the woman. Someone from the crowd noticed and commented that the man had just ordered the goblin to let her go. Another pointed out that he was wearing beginner gear, yet dared to stand against a monster even the Evaton Guild couldn't defeat. Tears streamed down Kim's face as he told the goblin to stop, declaring that it was all over now. The crowd misinterpreted his words, thinking he had brought the goblin under control and saved the woman. They began cheering for him, wishing him luck. Confused, Kim wondered why they were cheering. They should be mocking him. Then it hit him. They didn't know he was the one who summoned the goblin. He remembered saying he didn't want the Evaton Guild to get hurt and that he would handle the goblin himself. From their perspective, he was now a hero risking his life to save a woman from a monster. Realizing this, Kim began laughing maniacally. He turned to Jihyun and warned her not to end up like her dead comrades. If she stayed quiet about him and the goblin, he wouldn't kill her. Jihyun nervously agreed to keep the secret. Satisfied, Kim accepted her promise. He then dramatically turned to the goblin, blaming it for attacking the village and causing so much pain despite being just a monster. Acting furious, he slipped a chain around the goblin's neck and began dragging it with him. One of the onlookers gasped, recognizing the technique. The chains of light, a skill capable of restraining monsters, was being used by someone in a beginner town. The goblin appeared completely helpless as Kim dragged it around. Kim knew the truth. This was simply his skill that allowed him to take the goblin on walks. Still, he played along and warned everyone to step back, pretending the situation was dangerous and that he was barely able to control the creature. The crowd whispered among themselves, now believing Kim's level to be over 50. They realized the Evaton Guild hadn't been weak. Nobody else could have stood a chance against the monster either. Kim added to the act, claiming that he might not be strong enough to defeat it but could still drive it away using his skill. He then summoned some goblin food and threw it far into the distance, yelling that it was the creature's end. The goblin immediately ran after the food. As soon as the goblin left the town, Kim ordered the gates to be closed. The town's gates shut behind the creature, and the danger was sealed outside. Turning to the people, Kim asked if everyone was all right. The crowd cheered, relieved, celebrating that he had successfully chased the goblin away. Kim felt a brief sense of peace, thinking the situation was now under control. Later, Jihyun approached him. She informed him that the other guild members had died and been transported back to the Shrine of Revival in the sacred grounds of Pascal. She was the only one who knew the truth about Kim and the goblin, and she promised to keep her word. Kim looked at her and saw potential. He thought she could be useful. He reminded her that within Pascal, one had infinite HP, making them safe from monsters and other players. That's why it was called the Sacred Grounds. Then, in a low and threatening tone, he warned her to keep the promise or face death. Jihyun, now visibly shaken, nodded nervously. Later, Kim was seen lying comfortably on a bed, proud of himself for ending up in such a nice room after pretending to do a good deed. He reflected that although it hadn't been part of the plan, he was still proud of the outcome. His thoughts wandered to the past when he had no power. If he had it back then, maybe he could have saved her. Suddenly, he remembered the goblin point he had earned from the Goblin Lord. He had chosen this class because he felt a connection to goblins, and now the system rewarded him for being cunning. Opening the skill shop, he noticed that all advanced skills were locked, leaving him with only one choice. He wondered what the Rally skill did. The system activated the goblin skill Rally, and the goblin appeared instantly. Both Kim and the goblin were thrilled. Kim realized it was a summon recall skill. Panicking, he warned the goblin that if anyone found out it was still around, they would both be in big trouble. Suddenly, someone arrived at the gate and asked if Kim was all right. He calmly responded that he was fine. The goblin picked up its weapon and Kim quickly apologized, asking it to put the weapon down. He reassured the goblin, saying he understood. That night, Kim looked at the goblin and saw himself in it. Even though the goblin hadn't done anything, it was mocked and attacked without reason. Just like him, this world, he thought, was full of motherfuckers. After that, Kim entered the bar where a man confronted him, calling him the guy who saved a member of the Evaton Guild yesterday. Kim confirmed it casually, but internally felt uneasy in the crowded bar without his goblin by his side. Eun-hyuk approached and acknowledged that there had been no reason for Kim to help them, especially after they'd declared themselves enemies. Still, he expressed gratitude. Kim silently wished he would stop thanking him with that intense glare. Eun-hyuk reassured Jihyun that Kim had no intention of fighting. Meanwhile, Jihyun realized the goblin wasn't present and worried that everyone was being fooled by him. Kim admitted that despite their past conflict, he helped them because he needed something. Yoonhyuk accepted that and stated that the Evaton Guild always repaid its debts and was willing to assist Kim in any way possible. Kim explained that farming in the beginner area no longer yielded much for him. Now that he was over level 30, he wanted to move to the next zone and asked if they knew how to get there. Yoonhyuk mentioned Fjorindel and referred Kim to someone who knew the path. An older man stepped forward, claiming to be familiar with the route. Kim grabbed his hand, prompting the old man to apologize. Then he acknowledged that Kim must be very strong for handling that goblin alone, possibly even stronger than them. This caused Patton the Annihilator to flare up with anger. Kim thought to himself that wasn't true and admitted that if Patton had attacked him yesterday, he would have died in a single hit. The old man began explaining that the beginner area, known as Lev, had 5 regular dungeons: the Grass Zone, the Mine Dungeon, the Dark Forest Zone, and others. These were open field dungeons that could be entered at any time. However, to leave Lev, one had to clear a raid dungeon. Kim confirmed whether that meant defeating a raid dungeon boss. The old man clarified that raid dungeons, unlike open field ones, had gates that opened and closed at specific times. They came with limits on attempts and time and served as the final challenge of the area, meant to be attempted only after enough leveling. Yoonhyuk stood up and revealed that Lev's raid dungeon only opened once a month. Their entire group had gathered to clear it. Kim then realized their presence in the area meant that yesterday had been the day the raid dungeon opened. But the goblins' interference had ruined everything, and now they were stuck in Lev until the next raid. Kim was stunned to learn he was stuck there for a month. He thought about how he'd earned over $200,000 from the level 80 monster drops, and how his goblin could easily clear even tougher dungeons. Now he'd be wasting an entire month in a town where he couldn't make money. Frustrated, Kim grabbed Yoonhyuk by the collar and shouted, furious that his precious time was being wasted. He demanded another way. Yoonhyuk replied calmly that everyone was angry about the delay and the guild's debt had been repaid. With that, the group began leaving the bar. Jihyun looked back at Kim one last time before walking away. Meanwhile, Kim's goblin observed them in secret from the side. At the same time, the system suddenly triggered the boss raid to open. The old man was shocked, noting that at least 30 days were supposed to remain before the next raid. Kim was stunned to realize that the boss raid had already begun. Seeing the portal in front of him, Patton acknowledged that the boss raid had really opened just a day later. Yoonhyuk asked how many people were already inside. The old man responded that not even one had entered yet, as those who were prepared had already cleared it yesterday and moved on to the next region. Yoonhyuk realized that meant only their group remained this time. Just then, Kim appeared, accusing them of lying. He expressed frustration for believing them when they said he had to wait an entire month. He felt betrayed and blamed himself for trusting others again after everything he had been through. Jihyun tried to explain that he was misunderstanding, but Yoonhyuk simply asked if Kim was coming or not. Kim agreed, stating he wouldn't just sit back while they went in and grabbed all the rewards. Yoonhyuk then gave a quick explanation. Based on their intel, the raid boss chamber had only one room. That meant they would face the boss immediately upon entry and had to stay alert. The old man added that it probably wouldn't be too dangerous since the boss was below their level, but caution was still important. Patton remarked that even though their guildmaster wasn't present, the entire Evaton guild was there, and a boss like this would be defeated in just 10 seconds. With that, the group started entering the portal. Yoonhyuk smiled and signaled everyone to go. Kim whispered to his goblin, who was hiding behind a tree, telling him to stay hidden until called. He thought to himself that anyone could betray him, just like before, and he wouldn't allow that again. Holding an advanced healing stone, Kim felt prepared. He stepped into the portal and, once inside, looked ahead to see the group running back toward him. Behind them was a level 40 steel giant approaching rapidly. The system notified that they had entered a hidden dungeon, the steel giant's residence. While fleeing, Yoonhyuk demanded answers from the old man, who denied knowing anything. Jihyun shouted for Kim to stop standing still and run to the portal, but Kim refused, questioning why they would flee from a hidden dungeon. He pointed out the valuable rewards such dungeons offered. Though the boss was level 40, the level gap wasn't too severe. They wouldn't die permanently, just cough up some blood and pass out. He reminded them that great rewards never came easy and criticized their lack of awareness about the value of hidden dungeon loot. Kim then declared that they could all run away, but he would claim all the rewards for himself. Using his goblin summoner skill, Rally, Kim summoned his goblin. The goblin, who had been sitting quietly outside the dungeon, was now called into action. But before the goblin could arrive, the steel giant charged at Kim and landed a powerful punch. Kim was killed instantly in a single hit. Patton mocked him, surprised that this was the same guy who fought the goblin yesterday. Yoonhyuk dismissed Kim's fate, focusing instead on the fact that the portal had closed. He was shocked, realizing that only raid dungeons closed this early. This one was supposed to be a hidden dungeon. The old man explained that they had underestimated the place. Just as ordinary dungeons could occasionally transform, raid dungeons could also contain hidden dungeons at low probability. That was why they now faced a hidden boss raid. With no other choice, they had to fight. Back in the real world, Kim lay inside the gaming capsule, suddenly screaming in frustration. He couldn't believe he had died from a single hit, despite being above level 30. Though the boss was level 40, it still felt unfair. He realized he had forgotten to use his status points. The portal was now closed, which meant he couldn't summon his goblin anymore. The treasure had been right in front of him, yet he had lost it all. Cursing the goblin, he questioned if he was really going to miss out on all the rewards. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, Yoon-hyuk shouted to begin the hunt. That jolted Kim back to awareness. The group engaged the steel giant in battle. Watching them fight, the old man instructed Yoon-hyuk and Min-sung to attack first and identify the giant's weak points. With Ji-hyun's movement speed buff, the enemy wouldn't have time to react. The steel giant roared loudly, and both Yoon-hyuk and Patton launched their attacks simultaneously. The old man noted that every monster had at least one weak spot. Their attack strategy involved a series of 16 slashes from each fighter, 32 strikes in total, to analyze which wound was deepest, revealing the weak point. Stepping aside for a moment, Yoon-hyuk asked Patton if he had figured it out. Patton admitted he hadn't. Despite using a technique designed to expose weaknesses, no damage was inflicted, something that had never happened before. Yoon-hyuk agreed and suggested two possibilities. Either the enemy's defense was too high, or, before he could finish, the steel giant lunged forward to attack. Dodging swiftly, Yoon-hyuk activated his unrivaled sword skill and confirmed that smaller attacks wouldn't work. The enemy possessed a skill called Hatred for the Weak. Patton acknowledged that only Yoon-hyuk could inflict real damage against a level 40 boss. But the old man disagreed, claiming Yoon-hyuk wasn't the strongest. There was someone else whose ultimate skill could outperform his, depending on the situation. Ji-hyun then used her ultimate Deathbringer arrow skill, thinking that if others discovered she had it, they'd demand she become the guildmaster. Patton shouted back that he didn't know what the skill required, but he could buy her as much time as needed. Activating his War City skill, he prepared to face the enemy head-on. The steel giant advanced toward Patton, aiming to strike. Kim, lying on the ground, thought Patton was an idiot for drawing the monster's aggro instead of escaping. The steel giant launched its attack, but Patton blocked it and laughed, declaring it was nothing and that he had expected more power. The old man warned Patton not to drop his guard, emphasizing that their plan couldn't afford any mistakes. He then activated his pain-sharing skill. Kim's soul observed them all, amazed. Despite being low-level and not having hidden classes, they fought fiercely. Yoon-hyuk explained that while the warriors kept the monster distracted, the assassin team would weaken its defenses using their passive skills. Watching the coordination, Kim was stunned by their strength. He realized this was what a real guild looked like. If they managed to defeat the boss while he remained dead, he wouldn't gain any experience or rewards. As the steel giant faced Patton, it suddenly looked in a different direction. Patton was startled and questioned why the boss wasn't focusing on him. The steel giant plunged its hand into the ground. At that moment, Kim revived, stood up laughing, and declared he couldn't let these losers handle things alone. Claiming to be the highest-level player, he decided to step in as the protagonist, making a late entrance. The system then announced that the steel giant had selected Kim as its target and had used its wide-range skill, Surface Pulverization. The attack instantly killed several members of the team. Witnessing the destruction, Kim panicked, questioning why he had chosen to revive at that exact moment. Seeing his comrades in such a state, Patton was filled with rage. He couldn't tolerate anyone hurting his allies, but the old man quickly warned him not to let his guard down. Ignoring the warning, Patton charged forward and unleashed his Giga Slash skill on the steel giant. However, the monster effortlessly struck Patton, sending him flying. Due to the pain distribution skill, the old man also took damage from the attack. As a result, both Patton and the old man were killed on the spot. Kim watched in shock, panicking. He insisted it wasn't his fault, and all he did was revive himself. Yoon-hyuk, still alive, analyzed the situation. Monsters typically prioritize healers and ranged damage dealers over tanks, but Patton had used the Warcry taunt skill to draw its attention. The unexpected revival of a player reset the monster's aggro, and the assassins were instantly killed before they could react. Even the tanks hadn't been able to withstand it. Ji-hyun, readying her one-shot, one-kill bow skill, asked Yoon-hyuk if she should attack. Her HP remained at 46%, but Yoon-hyuk instructed her to stay calm. Attacking now would ruin the entire plan. He realized that the assassin passive skills hadn't fully stacked yet, making it impossible to kill the monster in a single strike. Moving forward, Yoon-hyuk told Ji-hyun that he would draw the aggro. He warned her not to cancel her skill under any circumstance. Without her one-shot attack, they had no hope of winning. Kim approached Ji-hyun, asking if there was anything he could do to help, but she dismissed him, stating that without his goblin, he was useless. In her mind, she saw him as nothing but a nuisance. Hearing her response, Kim grew furious. He couldn't understand why she looked down on him just because he didn't have his goblin. He blamed the others for preventing him from summoning it. Despite their weakness, they treated him like a burden. Angry and bitter, he decided to let them struggle and die without his help. The system announced that the steel giant had chosen Ji-hyun as its next target. As Yoon-hyuk had suspected, the monster was prioritizing archers and ranged damage dealers. Yoon-hyuk stepped forward, drawing the monster's attention. He declared himself as the real opponent and launched his Twin Blade Rave skill at the steel giant, but the attack had no effect. He continued with another Twin Blade Rave and then again for a third time, each strike more forceful than the last. His goal was to deal enough damage to draw aggro. Only after 3 full-power attacks did the Steel Giant finally consider him a threat. The system confirmed that the Steel Giant had selected Yunyuk as its new target. He thought to himself that although the weak point Severance skill had only 3 stacks, his last attack should have made up for it. Now, all that remained was to buy Jihyun some time. Facing the monster, Yunyuk claimed the next 3 seconds as his own. He activated the Quick Evade skill, which allowed him to dodge all physical attacks for 3 seconds. But then the system alerted him that his MP was insufficient. Shocked, Yunyuk froze. The Steel Giant took the opportunity and struck him down in a single hit. His body was thrown across the battlefield, landing right at Kim's feet. Kim screamed in frustration, furious at how confidently the others had acted, only to end up like this. He regretted reviving himself and believed he should have stayed down. Jihyun snapped back, accusing him of ruining everything by reviving at the worst possible moment. She shouted that she wasn't helpless just because she was charging her bow. Kim grew more enraged, questioning whether they seriously could have killed the monster if he hadn't revived. Jihyun confirmed that they absolutely could have done it if she had just 10 more seconds. In a fit of anger, Kim declared he would rather see everyone die than let them take the reward without him. Suddenly, the Steel Giant let out a deafening roar, startling both Kim and Jihyun. The system then announced that the monster had selected Jihyun as its next target. Jihyun, still charging her bow, stated that now wasn't the time to argue. Although her skill wasn't fully charged yet, it was her only chance to attack. She demanded to know what Kim was doing. With a twisted smile, Kim asked if she was unable to move while charging. As he stepped closer, she warned him not to approach. But Kim picked her up and started running with her on his shoulders. He reminded her she only needed 10 more seconds. Jihyun, shocked by his speed, compared it to Yunhyuk's. Kim had invested all his stat points into agility. Even assassins wouldn't put every point into speed, but he did. Despite not being an assassin, his movement speed matched one. He realized that their argument earlier gave him a goblin point. Confused and annoyed, he suspected the Goblin Lord was mocking him, as goblin points only triggered during subhuman behavior. Jihyun finally announced her skill was ready. Kim told her to fire. She warned him not to rush her. Aiming while moving at such speed was difficult. If she missed, everything would be over. Kim replied that she owed him, for the blood he lost and the greater healing stone he had used. He began circling the Steel Giant, preventing it from landing a direct attack. As the monster turned, Jihyun moved into position behind it, preparing her one-shot, one-kill-bow skill. Just then, the system alerted that the Steel Giant had activated its AoE skill, World Demolisher. Kim realized the hidden boss had been saving a deadly skill. The attack covered all directions. Jihyun, now at just 1% HP, and Kim with only 100 GP due to his earlier revival, would both be instantly killed if hit. Jihyun struggled to aim due to the rubble blocking her shot. Kim said his brain was showing him something. Jihyun asked if it was a solution to their crisis. Kim clarified that it wasn't. It was memories of playing with his friends. Jihyun concluded that he was experiencing his life flashing before his eyes. Then, through a crack in the wall, Kim's goblin reappeared. Seeing it, Kim welcomed the goblin and mentioned how long it felt since he had last used the rally skill. Jihyun watched in disbelief, stunned that the goblin had damaged the dungeon space itself to enter. She questioned if such a feat was even possible. Kim then activated his secret move, Goblin Shield. Laughing, he taunted the hidden boss, calling it the climax of the battle. At last, Jihyun released her arrow. It struck the Steel Giant with full power, killing it instantly. The system declared that they had cleared the hidden dungeon, Chamber of the Steel Giant. Jihyun, overwhelmed, stated they had truly won. Her level rose from 27 to 31. Kim's level also increased from 31 to 34. Immediately after, Kim demanded his reward. After the raid was cleared, all the fallen characters were revived. Yunyuk immediately asked if everyone was safe. Patton confirmed they were, although he could still taste blood in his mouth. He admitted they were lucky it ended when it did. If the boss's level had been any higher, they would have been in serious danger. Even the old man came back to life. Yunyuk then asked for an explanation of what had happened. At that moment, Kim warned everyone not to come any closer. The system notified Jihyun that she had not met the condition for the hidden class. She was shocked, realizing that clearing the hidden dungeon wasn't enough to qualify. Kim reflected on it. Just like how they had gained the Goblin Lord's favor to fulfill their own class advancement conditions, it seemed that hidden classes also required special conditions to be met inside hidden dungeons. Advancing didn't necessarily require defeating the boss, it just depended on fulfilling those specific conditions. It made more sense to obtain the hidden class first, and then defeat the boss. Kim was curious about what class Jihyun could have received, but decided it wasn't the time to dwell on it. His focus now was on the dropped reward. Frustrated, Kim muttered that it just had to happen now. Jihyun interrupted him, saying that even though the final blow came from the two of them, everyone had contributed to the fight. She insisted the reward should be shared after consulting the team. Kim stubbornly refused. Jihyun informed Yunyuk that Kim had been acting like this ever since the battle ended. Yunyuk sarcastically asked if Kim was Gollum. He then calmly told Kim that although they had received his help twice, the boss of the raid was now officially cleared. They had already achieved their goal and didn't intend to fight over any unexpected reward. The old man beside Yoon-hyuk whispered that they shouldn't have started this in the first place. Kim snapped, accusing him of betraying him not once, but twice. Yoon-hyuk reminded Kim that they could easily take him down if they wanted to. He had no intention of using force, but questioned Kim about the bow, which was clearly a unique item. He pointed out that Kim wasn't even an archer and sarcastically asked if he planned to use the bow to start a fire. Kim knew the truth. Unique items couldn't be sold, and they couldn't be used unless one belonged to a specific class. Even so, Kim insisted he wanted the bow. He complained that everyone else seemed to have one, so why shouldn't he? Eun-hyuk told him to stop being greedy and hand the bow over to Ji-hyun. With a creepy smile, Kim agreed to give up the weapon, but only in exchange for something. Eun-hyuk asked what he wanted. Kim stood up and explained that since the item was untradeable, it was essentially priceless. If he were to claim it, others would be at a loss, so they would need to buy it from him. The old man realized Kim had probably stayed conscious after the battle just so he could sell the item later. Kim's smile disturbed Eun-hyuk, who thought he looked just like the goblin from before. Meanwhile, the goblin was watching everything quietly from the shadows. Eventually, Ji-hyun took the bow and commented on its weight. Kim thanked Eun-hyuk for the trade. Eun-hyuk remarked that Kim really had a talent for being hated and asked where he planned to go next. Kim replied that it was obvious. Anywhere that didn't have them in it. With that, Eun-hyuk and his team walked away. As they left, Ji-hyun turned back and gave Kim a small smile. And with that, the Evaton Guild and Kim officially cleared the hidden boss raid. Kim couldn't help but think about the loss of the unique bow. Though it stung, he reminded himself that he couldn't use it anyway. He had received something even more useful in return. What truly excited him was the real jackpot, an item overlooked by everyone too focused on the unique weapon. Just a while ago, he was only a mining player. Those idiots had failed to recognize the actual value of what he had claimed. For Kim, the unique weapon meant nothing. The real treasure lay elsewhere. And in his mind, they were the ones who betrayed him first. The scene then shifted to Fyrandel, where Kim spotted a crowd of high-level players. He noticed one player wearing gear he had never seen before and wondered how much they earned from grinding. The scent of money lingered in the air. But before anything else, Kim knew he needed to upgrade his equipment. Even if repaying his debts was important, it could wait. He remembered how shocked he was to die in one hit from a monster 9 levels below him, even if it was a hidden boss. To be fair, he was still wearing armor from when he was only level 3. Suddenly, the goblin beside him warned him to look back. Kim responded with a threat, telling him not to cause trouble in the village. But as he turned around, he was stunned. A massive, boss-level monster stood before him. The sight shocked him. Why would such a monster be here? Sitting atop the monster was a girl. She found it interesting to see someone with a goblin summon, wondering if it belonged to Kim. Her name was Irene, a summoner at level 76. Kim was taken aback. There was someone riding this monster, making it clear it was a summon too. Irene assured him there was no need to worry. Michelle, the monster, remained docile inside the village. Kim quickly realized how strong Irene was. He didn't need to fight her to know that most guilds, even Evaton, stood no chance against her. Irene then addressed him warmly, asking for his name. Kim gave it. But she clarified she meant the child beside him, the goblin. She had heard Kim call it that and asked if he hadn't named it yet. Kim dismissed the idea. He saw no point in naming a summoned monster and found it absurd that she would call it cute. Irene gently warned him that one-sided relationships were bound to be unstable. She pointed out how the goblin had already taken an aggressive stance to protect a master who hadn't even given him a name. With a cryptic farewell, she expressed hope that Kim wouldn't remain so dull the next time they met. She rode off with her summon, leaving Kim to grumble. He sarcastically thanked her for the advice, insisting he didn't need it. In his mind, he and the goblin had no problems. They marched off together. Later, a man pointed out that Kim's equipment was literal trash. At this point, wearing actual garbage would have been better. Kim admitted that's why he had come, to buy better gear. The man mocked him, saying it might be too good for trash like Kim. Kim found a chest plate and decided it would work. He calculated the cost, 350 gold, roughly $40 in real money. Even with a max-level summon, if Kim died, it would be over. That's why he needed at least minimal defense stats. After selling the armor, the man complimented Kim's choice, sarcastically suggesting he use it well since it was made with high-quality steel, meant for idiots like him. Kim put on the armor but found himself unable to move. The man quipped that people like him were better off not moving at all. Kim regretted his decision. He had invested all his points into agility to deal with the steel giant and now had no balance. He had to sell it back. The man laughed and offered to buy the sturdy chestplate back, for just 30 gold. Kim was furious. He had just bought it for 350, and now he was getting scammed by an NPC. Suddenly, an exclamation mark appeared above the man's head. Kim asked about it, confused. The man looked around, seemingly unable to see it himself. He then declared that his hammer was missing. Without it, he couldn't forge anything. Kim pointed out that he had plenty of other hammers, but the man insisted this one was different. He believed it was lost in the underground waterway dungeon near the village entrance. He ordered Kim to go find it. The system then issued Kim a quest, to find Humphrey's smelting hammer. The reward was the ability to process materials into armor. Kim realized the quest's value. It explained why the hidden boss materials were so expensive. If he could process them into equipment, it would all make sense. With a slight smile, Kim repeated the dungeon's name, the underground waterway. The system confirmed the quest was accepted. Kim grinned. He didn't have to worry about anyone else. Party members would only slow him down. He figured he could clear such an easy dungeon in under 30 minutes. But just as he stood there, the man shouted again, ordering him to get moving. The system gave one final warning: the quest would fail if Humphrey died. Well guys, that's the end of the video. If you like this video, comment part 2 in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and like the video. Thank you for watching and see you next time again.